Hello and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Zoe Hawkins, and my friend and co-host Joe Wheatley.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. We're talking today about training to be a coach after experiencing burnout. And we're talking about that because we have lots of people that come to coach training because they have experienced a level of burnout in their current life or career. And so we're going to explore that topic with you today.
Yeah, and I think a good place to start is why. Why do people come to coaching after experiencing burnout? And the people that we speak to will often share how burnout has really changed them as a person. And I suppose I was going to use the word forced, and I was like, I don't know if the word is forced, but I'll use it anyway because it's come up in conversations that the burnout forces them to reevaluate life and the way that they see both themselves and the world within it. And I think they start to make a connection with, like, I am my greatest resource. And so many people who've experienced burnout have also experienced the helping professions, be that counseling or a friend or a great coach. And so they start to understand that the tools and resources that reside within them are incredibly powerful, and being able to apply that to their own life inspires them to go on to support and serve others, through modalities such as coaching. So that's some of the context behind why people tend to arrive at, at our door at coaching qualification after experiencing burnout.
I think burnout is awful. But it can also, it's very unnerving. It can be really disorientating, can be quite frightening for people. You can stop to recognize yourself. But one of the benefits, if there is a silver lining of it, is it really helps you to get clear on your non-negotiables. It's like the things that you've been ignoring, you can't ignore anymore. And so when we think about, filling our cup and our cup literally draining away, I think one of the reasons that people look to coaching training after, in recovering from an experience of that or being recovered from it, is often a desire to have more engaging something that has more meaning in their life. And and coaching is the best way I know to engage with and to develop your own understanding of what has meaning for you. Not just one thing. Our identity is quite a complex thing to work with and explore. And it's amazing to see people's confidence build back up gradually. I think it happens really gradually after burnout. But through a coaching program where you are with other people who are compassionate, understanding, curious, loving, and wanting to support everybody else, with their development as well. And I think it can be a slower pace.
Mm. There's so much comes often from going through a period of adversity. And I think burnout is one of those, as you said, Joe, you almost want to reclaim who you are and reclaim what is important to you. And, when it comes to discovering something like coaching, it's a really invigorating journey often. Like, people come to coaching training after experiencing burnout, not at the point where they're still in struggle. This is often when they're in this, like, fertile ground of learning and growth and reflection, and they're more resourced and more able to apply themselves. And some of the people I speak to, that might be a year after they've experienced burnout or 2 years after experiencing burnout, where they may have tried to go back into the workplace or the world as it was before they experienced burnout, to find that they don't fit in that world anymore. They've changed, and the experience of burnout has fundamentally changed who they are. And so they simply cannot get back. They have to go forward. And I think that's the beautiful thing about coaching. It's very much a forward focused world. The process that we use to support and coach people is focused on the future, but just the process of learning and growing within the coaching training itself is all very much around, well, what do I want? Where do I want to be? And how do I get there? And what do I need to do? So it's a very enriching, I always say coaching is a life enriching experience.
I think it is also closely related to, I think coaching training really supports you to develop that sense of I am enough. And I think burnout is, is often that feeling of like, I wasn't enough, I couldn't do it. I should have been able to do it. Why couldn't I do it? And in some sense, yeah, just not feeling enough. And training to be a coach is not all about learning skills and tools. Um, it's so much about, becoming, understanding who you are, all the things we talk about on the podcast all of the time. And I think that can really help, along with the work that you do around beliefs and, all of the things that are really core to coaching, and can just really help you to kind of come back to that sense of home, like the essence of who you are, and a satisfaction with I am enough. I don't need to prove anything. I don't need to be anything else. Yes, I can still develop and grow, but that's a different experiencing to feeling like you're not fully you
Mm.
already.
There's something around the coaching industry as well. And I said this before, that it is a hugely accepting place. And I think for many people that experience burnout, they carry a shame of having experienced burnout. And obviously, you don't need to, because as you've said, like burnout is often because you've been so strong for so long and you find yourself in a place of struggle. And I don't want to normalize burnout because it shouldn't be normal. And yet it is very normal that people burn out because of the pressures of the world that we live in. So when people come to coaching, you can release that shame. Like in our spaces, in our communities, in coaching training, you will find other people who resonate deeply with the experience you have, either having seen a loved one go through burnout or then themselves go through burnout. Like you can totally release the expectation of having had to have been more or done more or been better or stronger. And hopefully by the time you reach your place of growth, you're releasing that anyway. But what we find is it is often a piece of their journey that releases as they learn about, how do you help and support others with their mindset, their values, their beliefs. They recognize, oh, actually, I can support myself with this too. And there are things that I'm carrying that I no longer have to carry and I can let go. So I think one of the reasons why people are drawn to coaching is there is a sense that this is a place of safety for life experiences, that actually those life experiences can become very useful in understanding and supporting others and just really understanding human behavior.
I have such admiration for people that kind of reach out to us. They're interested in doing coaching training. On pretty much every phone call when people are inquiring initially, it's really important to them to tell us a bit of their life story. Like why they've arrived here. And on some calls, I hear people trying to justify to me why they might be a good candidate for coaching training. They're not trying to justify to me. They're sort of explaining and convincing themselves. Like as you say, Zoe, like I already accept you. Welcome. If you feel after our conversation and a full understanding of the program that it's a good fit for you, then you are welcome, and we are here to support you. And my admiration for people when on those calls they share things like, I experienced burnout 5 years ago, or I'm just recovering from burnout, or any other reason that has brought people or given them clarity that actually this feels like a natural and resourcing next step for them, because coaching training is a healing experience. Whether you come to it for that or it happens to be a happy byproduct of it, it definitely is a healing experience.
Yeah. And I don't think that's to be understated either. It's, as you said, Joe, it's not always why people come. It's the desire to help and serve others. And you can't but help change in the process of learning to be a coach for yourself. Yeah. And you were saying you have huge admiration. And I think it takes a lot of courage to share a story, but it takes a lot of courage to really own your experience as well. Like to to go through something like that and face into life and how it looks different, and to use the resources that you have learned to think, well, how am I going to turn this into something that is meaningful for me? How am I going to create the gold from the story that I have had? And that does take courage. And I think that is to be celebrated.
Sometimes when people are doing coaching training, I think they discover that they have experienced burnout in the past. They didn't realize that they had, or that they are currently experiencing a level of burnout, not complete burnout, but I think that comes about by the learning that takes place around the importance of values, having an understanding of what your values are and what your needs are ultimately. Because when your needs aren't met, that is a pathway to towards burnout. And I think if I speak for myself, I think burnout is always a risk. And it's a risk when you do something that you really love. It's not that if you do something you really love, you're never going to get burned out. Just in some extent, there's an even greater risk. You've got being in a role that is completely unfulfilling and you burn out because it just feels soul destroying. You've got burnout that might happen because you are just spinning too many plates, and you might feel that you can't stop spinning those plates. There could be lots of different things going on in your life that all feel equally important. And then you could be in in a role that is your sole purpose, and you just you just want to keep doing it. You're hyper focusing, and you can to some degree lose a sense of self. So I think for me, coaching training I think certainly helped me to understand, be able to monitor where I am, along that, and knowing what my needs are helps me to know the things that I can do when I feel I'm sliding a little bit, along a scale further than I want to be, whilst also knowing that those other life things that go on that influence all of that, you don't always have control over those things. So it's working out, what do I have control over and what don't I have control over.
Yeah. I mean, training to be a coach gives you a level of self-awareness that is hard to replicate through any other experience. And in my sort of equivalent story to you, I can remember being heavily pregnant, carrying a baby on my hip, carrying a shopping bag, trying to push a trolley. And this chap comes over and he's like, do you want some help? And I said, no. Like the first words that came out, no, I'm fine. I mean, I can see me there, seeing that I am not fine, and that is a strategy that I have. And to this day, I still have. My default is no, I'm fine. Like, I'm good. I don't need your help. And it is so much less automatic now than it was. Now that story I told, I'd actually trained as a coach. But I think what I'm saying is it gives you an ability to sometimes just like come up above yourself. Because it was shortly after that I got back to the car and I was like, why did I not accept that person's help? Like they were being great, they were being gracious. They could see that I was struggling, and it just helps you to see yourself in that continued learning journey that you go on well beyond training to be a coach throughout life. Really, it gives you the resources to be able to expand like your awareness of yourself and who you are and how you want your life to be. And these days I sort of chuckle to myself. So when people approach me in the street, whatever it is, to, can I help you with that? Can I do this? I pause and I always say yes, even if I don't need the help, because it's become like a little challenge of mine around, how flexible can I be with that? And I can still feel that default behavior inside. And I guess what I'm saying and offering to people is that we all have automatic behaviors and we all have strategies. Not all of us are going to burn out. Not all of us would have experienced burnout. And do you know that coaching training is one place that you can come where the learning that you go through has such an impact and a ripple through your life, but also those of the people who are close to you as well.
I think ultimately it's a place where you can be emotionally honest. And I don't think there are many places that people feel that they can do that. And that can be It can be really nourishing. It can be really revealing. It can be really beautiful. It can be super scary. And and that's part of the adventure, really. I think also training to be a coach after experiencing burnout, what else comes to me is I think about coaching clients that I've had. So people that I've worked with, professionals, and they often, it's just not on their radar that they might be burning out because it's the role. That's what the role requires. It must be about me, and why am I not able to do this? Why am I finding this way, wanting to fix that part of them without having um the time sometimes or the awareness to be able to take a step back and look at the broader picture. And by that I mean uh the systemic influences on why those demands are so high, what they're saying yes to, what they're saying no to, what they want to achieve in their career. Sometimes, how risky it is where they are to stay where they are, but they haven't realized where they are. And I think then sometimes, through coaching work and doing work around that and being able to increase the awareness, take decisions, take actions that are aligned to their well-being in all senses, and what they want to achieve. People don't always want to feel like they need to have a coach. But what they do want is to have the skills to be able to continue to do that work and have that impact in their life. And that can happen through the coaching experience that can develop. And some coachees can see and experience the power so strongly that they want to go to the source themselves.
Mm.
They want to go and learn the tools and techniques. They don't want to rely on working with another person. Now, there's always even as you've said on many times on other podcasts, as coaches, we can certainly benefit from working with a coach. It doesn't mean we have all the skills, so we never need to work with a coach again. There can always be benefit to that. But I think that when an individual, as I say, has experienced that in the role of coachee and they can see the power of coaching, that often then draws them or leads them into exploring, becoming I'm trying to think of a phrase into it, but let's just stick with like going to source.
Mm. I know you were saying around, there's a risk of burnout when you're deeply passionate about something. And I've kind of got a counterpoint to that, which is I think what's really lovely about coming and training to be a coach after a period of burnout is that you can apply your drive, your ambition, your hunger into something that is healthy. So what we often see with people who experience burnout is there is a drive, a hunger, a thirst, a push, for something. And that something is often like unhealthy, and that's what sort of generates the burnout. And of course there's always life experiences that compound that, and it's usually a perfect storm. So the flip of that is, when you are passionate about something, and we see this with people who come to coaching, they want to help others, they want to make a difference in the world, they want to give back, they want to learn and grow. And when you apply those behaviors in that environment, yes, you can feel busy, and yes, you can feel full, but not in a burnout way, not in a way that takes something from you, in a way that resources you for something. So we hear people and they will often ask, I've got a full-time job, like, is training to be a coach, is it something I can fit in? Am I going to be able to do it? And those questions often become like, yes, it is very busy. And yes, I am working really hard. And yes, this does take a lot of time, but I am loving every minute of it. And I think that's the shift, and I think that's really liberating when you've experienced burnout, to be able to come and do something and feel the fullness and feel the busyness, but it be something really enriching for you instead of something draining.
I think there's a real pride associated with that. Like when you were saying that, I'm thinking about, after I've coached clients, or, when I used to coach more clients, so I'd be doing, much more coaching than I am doing now. And I can remember thinking, like, it's a busy day, it's intense, like it is intense, giving, being in those conversations that matter and being fully present, and what you do in between the sessions to get ready for the next client and so on, but also feeling that deep sense of joy and satisfaction afterwards, and a sense of pride that I've chosen to make this my life. I'm not saying it's easy, to get there. And actually, I think, the burnout bit in these areas is what, you don't just coach. There are other things you need to do to have a coaching business. And so how you arrange that part of the business is really as important as the way that you arrange your coaching work as well. And, there can be a lot of variety in coaching as well. And that can really help to, with the stimulation, with the resourcing, too. So I think we've covered a lot of areas around, what brings people to coaching or to train to be a coach after having experienced burnout, and some of the other considerations around it. But it can certainly be a real oasis and a real place to put in those building blocks again to build back up to, to the life that's going to be healthy for you moving forwards.
Yeah. So if you resonate with this episode and you're thinking yourself about training to be a coach, you can book a call and speak to one of us. And you can do that on our website at igcompany.com/ILM call. And you can do our quiz, which will help you to decide which coaching course is right for you. And you can find that at mycoachingcourse.com.